aggressor inflicts upon us, but we are also individuals deeply concerned with the other people of the world and their desires for revolution. In order to show this solidarity, we decided to call ourselves internationalists. Originally, as I said, we assumed that people could solve a number of their problems by becoming nations, but this conclusion showed our lack of understanding of the world's dialectical development. Our mistake was to assume the conditions under which people had become nations in the past still existed. To be a nation, one must satisfy certain essential conditions, and if these things do not exist or cannot be created, then it is not possible to be a nation. In the past, nation-states were usually inhabited by people of a certain ethnic and religious background. They were divided from other people either by a partition of water or a great unoccupied land space. This natural partition gave the nation's dominant class, and the people generally, a certain amount of control over the kinds of political, economic, and social institutions they established. It gave them a certain control over their destiny and their territory. They were secure at least to the extent that they would not be attacked or violated by another nation 10,000 miles away, simply because the means to transport troops that far did not exist. This situation, however, could not last. Technology developed until there was a definite qualitative transformation in the relationships within and between nations. We know that you cannot change a part of the whole without changing the whole and vice versa. As technology developed, there was an increase in military capabilities and means of travel and communication. Nations began to control other territories distant from their own. Usually, they controlled these other lands by sending administrators and settlers, who would extract labor from the people or resources from the earth, or both. This is the phenomenon we call colonialism. The settlers' control over the seized land and people grew to such an extent that it wasn't even necessary for the settler to be present to maintain the system. He went back home. The people were so integrated with the aggressor that their land didn't look like a colony any longer. But because their land didn't look like a free state either, some theorists started to call these lands neocolonies. Arguments about the precise definition of these entities developed. Are they colonies or not? If they aren't, what are they? The theorists knew that something had happened, but they did not know what it was. Using the dialectical materialist method, we, in the Black Panther Party, saw that the United States was no longer a nation, it was something else. It was more than a nation. It had not only expanded its territorial boundaries, but it expanded all of its controls as well. We called it an empire. Now, at one time, the world had an empire in which the conditions of rule were different, the Roman Empire. The difference between Roman and the American empires is that other nations were able to exist external to and independent of the Roman Empire because their means of exploration, conquest, and control were all relatively limited. But when we say empire today, we mean precisely what we say. An empire is a nation-state that has transformed itself into a power controlling all lands and people. We believe that there are no more colonies or neo-colonies. If a people is colonized, it must be possible for them to decolonize and become what they formerly were. But what happens when the raw materials are extracted and labor is exploited within a territory dispersed over the entire globe? When the riches of the whole earth are depleted and used to feed a gigantic industrial machine in the imperialist home? Then the people and the economy are so integrated into the imperialist empire that it's impossible to decolonize, to return to the former conditions of existence. If colonies cannot decolonize and return to their original existence as nations, the nations no longer exist.